What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. I can't say it enough. Y'all have been crazy with the support. Discord's popping off, YouTube's popping off, TikTok's popping off. So thank y'all for that support. Absolutely crazy to me and just means so much. So thank y'all again for that. Now in today's video, I know I'm a little late to the game on this with them being introduced this season, but I want to talk about the origin traits, the original traits on weapons that we got this season. So far we have 14 of them, and they are a wild different range of effects that these things have on our weapons. So first off on our list right here, we have a clarity. Now this comes from our Trials of Osiris. That is the source of it on those weapons, and its effect is you gain additional reload, stability, aim assist, and range when you are the last living member of your fire team or running solo. So this procs in those legendary Master Lost sectors alone, as well as Rumble. Next off on our list, we have the Hake Breach Armament. This comes from Weapon Foundry. So this is a just when it drops, there are world drop weapons with this on. So the effect that the Hake Breach Armaments has is the weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. So that is super nice for your stasis builds and shooting those crystals. Next off, we have the Invader Tracker for Gambit. This comes from Gambit on those weapons, and damaging the Invader with this weapon marks them for allies, so it is super nice when someone comes and invades you. Next off on the list, we have Land Tank, and this comes from our PsyOps Battleground missions within the EDZ, the Moon, and the Cosmodrome. So the effect that Land Tank has is final blows with the weapon grant increased resilience and additional damage resistance from combatants. So this is super nice for staying alive and helping with some of that end game content. Next off, we have another Weapon Foundry perk or original trait, which just means it's a world drop dropping on certain weapons. So this one is called Amalon Field Dynamics. So this grants weapons an increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. So this is really nice for getting that extra reload and stability on a certain weapon, depending on which ones use this certain original trait, and I will go over which weapons have each of these traits on them. Next off on our list, we have One Quiet Moment. This comes from our Crucible playlist, which also includes Trials, so this can also roll on some of those weapons as well. This perk grants increased reload speed when out of combat, so not sure how effective this can be inside of PvE, but in PvP, if you have to step back for a moment when you're not shooting each other, especially in 1v1s, this is super nice for getting that faster reload because you can get back in that fight a little bit quicker. Next off on our list, we have Psycho Hack. This comes from our Throne World weapons. I love this on especially my kinetic Fel Taradiddle bow. Sustained damage from this weapon lowers the target's damage output for a short duration. So when you're doing it on a boss and they kind of start glowing red, they actually deal less damage to you, which is super great for staying alive in some of that endgame content. Moving on to an Iron Banner perk that we got called the Sulking Wolf. This is during the hunt, final blows with this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from opposing radar. So this is super nice when you are playing in those Iron Banner matches. It's only applicable during those matches, but it is super nice getting that enhanced radar and then also taking you away from your opponents. That just creates some nice surprise attacks that you can get on people. Next off for our traits, we have Soul Drinker. The Vow of the Disciple raid is where this comes from on all of those weapons. So this, you gain health based on the number of hits before reloading. So this is really nice on something like a rapid fire with our SMG, something like that, and you get a nice little bit of health back. Nothing too substantial, but having that from the Vow of the Disciple raid weapons is a nice little addition to it. Next off, we have one of my favorite ones that we have called Stunning Recovery. Nightfall, the Ordeals is where these come from, so this is our Nightfall weapons that have these and come from that playlist. Stunning a champion partially refills the magazine and triggers health regeneration and improves recovery for a short period of time. So this is super clutch for doing those GMs or lost sectors, anything that has champions in it, and stunning it with the weapon that has the stunning recovery trait on it gives you a nice little bit of buffs to you and your weapons with that health regen and recovery. Next off, we have another weapon foundry, which is an addition to the two that we have had before with Hake Breach armaments and then also the Amalon Field Dynamics. So this one is called Suros Energy, which again, world drop comes from just certain weapons that have them on it. Reloading grants this weapon bonus handling and reduced incoming flinch for a short duration of time. So I absolutely love using this on sniper rifles inside a Crucible. Just helps me hit those shots, and it can help as well as something like the Katana hand cannon. When you reload it, you get these nice little additions to it. So Suros Energy is a great intrinsic perk to have on these weapons. Next off, we have Vanguard's Vindication. This comes from our Strikes playlist or our Vanguard ops. This comes on those certain weapons, and final blows from this weapon grant a small amount of health again. This one is pretty nice, getting that little bit of health, nothing too crazy. Again, it's only +7 health, but it is nice to see it when you are getting multiple defeats in a row. Moving on to our last two, we have the Viced Stinger. This is another weapon foundry that we have, again tying into our world loot pool, getting them to drop just like our funnel web has this on it. So damaging an enemy with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine and increase movement speed while aiming down sights. Bows receive faster draw times, sword receive faster charge times while this perk is active. So it's a nice little addition to your weapons, having that small increased chance of reloading the magazine and movement speed while ADSing. Last but not least, we have Classy Contender, which is actually only on one weapon so far, the Title SMG that we got with Guardian Games. So this origin trait on the weapon has final blows with the weapon grants class ability energy. So if you're on your Hunter using it, you're going to get your dodge back a little faster. If you're on your Titan, you're going to get your barricade back a little faster. And finally, on your Warlock, you will be getting your Rift back a little faster when you get final blows with this weapon. Now, it's not a substantial amount again, but when you are chaining a lot of defeats in a row, you are getting back your class abilities super fast. So right here we have a website that I have talked about before with blueberries.gg. They have this nice chart here that shows which weapons can have which traits on them, and if it actually requires the Witch Queen expansion or if it's free to play for all players. So we're going to go over each of these weapons and then kind of at the end talk about which traits I think personally are the best to use, and then some just the guns are worth it even if the perk is not. So on top here, we have all of our raid weapons from Vow of the Disciple, from Insidious down to Cataclysmic here. They all require the Witch Queen, and they can have that Soul Drinker original trait that we talked about beforehand. Now, these weapons are super good in my personal opinion, especially something like the Forbearance, this Cataclysmic right here for Solar, and then also I really like this Deliverance. It's a kinetic stasis fusion rifle. This thing feels super clean. Moving on here, this is a new weapon that we got this season in a scout rifle, Ashira's Embrace. Now this is from Trials of Osiris, so that is going to have that Clarity perk on it, and it can have one quiet moment as well. The next couple have Hake Breach on it, as well as the Invader perk for Gambit. So we have the Paris D, the Ragnhild D, and then the Palmyra B. These are all some world drops that we have that come with the Hake Breach armament on it. And then also the Title SMG from Guardian Games this season has Hake Breach armaments on it as well. Now the Herod C has the Hake Breach armaments and is the Gambit Invader tracker. So when you do damage, your teammates can see that Invader. That is a nice little addition for that that new auto rifle from Gambit. Now moving on to my favorite set, especially for the original perk Land Tank, I think that one's probably my favorite, at least me personally. Plus, Peace of Mind slaps super hard. So these weapons you can get, as you can see, from the Season Pass and Seasonal Activity. They came from the PsyOps Battlegrounds, and a lot of these have some pretty banging perks on them that you can get, and then they are also craftable for those enhanced perks on them as well. Plus, Land Tank, like I said, is one of my favorites. It makes that resistance, you kind of just feel like a walking, talking tank. Now below that, we have a couple in the world loot pool as well. The Ogma PR, the Snorri 5, and then also the Typhon 5. These all have the Amalon Fluid Dynamic original trait on them. Like I said, from the loot world pool, you can get them from a lot of different options, just playing the game, your patrols, strikes, stuff like that, with just random purple drops on the ground. Next off, for our Crucible hand cannon here with the Crisis inverted with an arc burn, it can have one quiet moment as well as that Amalon Fluid Dynamics that we talked about earlier with those world drops. This one specifically comes from that Crucible playlist. Now we have a couple different weapons from the campaign that we craft, as well as the Wellspring activity. These all have a perk on it called Psycho Hack, which is also up there with Land Tank as my two favorite. Is probably these two for that PvE realm for sure. And then the Suros perk is also pretty fun for me, at least inside of Crucible. But right here with this Psycho Hack, we have a bunch of different weapons with it. The Fel Taradiddle Bow, Empirical Evidence Sidearm, Forensic Nightmare SMG, the Enigma Glaive, Come to Pass Auto Rifle, Likely Suspect Fusion Rifle, Pointed Inquiry on that Scout Rifle, the Father Sin Sniper Rifle, the Tarnation Grenade Launcher, and finally the Red Herring Rocket Launcher. All of these are pretty good weapons in my personal opinion. This Likely Suspect is super good for PvP and the Void builds. I really do enjoy this Fel Taradiddle with the Psycho Hack. Love it as a perk in that kinetic slot. Has taken over as pretty much my primary kinetic bow that I use for anything I'm going into, even GMs, raids, stuff like that, with a couple of these other ones also being very viable. Now right here we have a couple different ones with our Weapon Foundry, our Iron Banner, and our Nightfalls. So for Iron Banner with Frontier's Cry and Razor's Edge, we have Sulking Wolf. Now it can also come on our other old Iron Banner weapons as well. These are just our new ones right here. That Sulking Wolf perk is pretty good in the Iron Banner realm, but not anything else besides that. Next off, we have two of our new Nightfall weapons, which, like again, our old Nightfall weapons that are in the rotation can also have these on them if you are doing those Grandmasters, Masters, stuff like that. They can roll with Stunning Recovery and Vanguard's Vindication, which are also two great PvE perks in my opinion. Stunning Recovery, when you stun those champions, you get that health regen, super nice. And then Vanguard's Vindication, when you get those defeats with that weapon, you trigger a little health regen, so that is also super nice. Our next three here are some of my favorite weapons to use in the game right now in general. Syncopation 53, the Katana 57, and the Fugu 55. All of these are in the world loot pool with Sura Synergy. I do really like this perk for that PvP realm for sure, and all three of these weapons are super great. Coming up on the end here, we have our Reckless Endangerment. Now, this is the playlist pursuit. You can get it from a couple different places with Strike, Gambit, and Crucible. So we can have Vanguard's Vindication on it, One Quiet Moment, and Invader for Tracker in Gambit. It has all three of those on it because we can get it from all three of those different playlists. Moving on to our new Strike playlist weapon in the Fortissimo 11. Again, can have Vanguard's Vindication on it, and then Suros Synergy. Love both of those perks. Definitely super banging. Next off, we have our last three weapons here with Viced Stinger. Now, these are also interesting weapons with the world loot pool. Funnel Web is the Recluse 2.0, took over as a Void SMG. This thing is definitely one of the best in the game right now. And then also the Crate Auto Rifle in a kinetic slot, actually, with that stasis ammo is super nice for those stasis builds. Plus, it has a nice super fast fire rate for me with that Vice Stinger on it. So also a very good gun. Sidearms for me, very underwhelming in Destiny, especially when we have something like hand cannons and funnel webs that are just way better than our normal sidearms. So that is it for all of these perks. Like I said, stuff like Trials of Osiris, Gambit, Crucible, and Strikes, as well as those Nightfalls. All of the weapons that are in rotation can roll with these different original traits on them. So you will have to get like a new one of our linear fusion rifles from Trials that is God tier. We have to re-get it for One Quiet Moment and a Clarity. Technically, you don't really have to, but it helps if you want those extra perks on them. Same thing with like Sire's Wrath and then Eye of Soul. So definitely an interesting that we have to regrind some of our old rolls, but super great with these different perks. Now, like I said before, there is definitely some that stand above the others for me. Like Land Tank is definitely up there for some of my top. Love this as a perk. Next, one of my other favorite ones that we have is Psycho Hack. Super good for the PvE game, taking down enemies and taking less resistance. And then also, like I said before, all three of these with Suros Energy, both of these are also very good for that PvE realm. Suros is super good for PvP in my personal opinion. Those are probably my top ones, with this one kind of scratching the top just because both of these weapons, Crate and Funnel Web, are so good that having this is a nice little addition to it, and it's not bad compared to the other ones that we have. So hopefully this helped you guys out, get a little bit better understanding of these origin traits and which weapons that we have within Destiny that can have them inside of their original trait. And then, like I said before, stuff like Gambit, Strikes, Crucible, Nightfall, Trials, all the other weapons within that rotation and loot pool can have those certain perks on them as well. It's not like specifically only the Fortissimo 11, it's any of those weapons that we can get from the Strike playlist. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll catch y'all in the next one.